Good morning, back again. Not sure what's going on with the weather. I'm back into jumpers and trousers because the weather cannot make its mind up. Looking at that sky and feeling what it feels like at the moment, we're going to get rained on again and it is pretty chilly. Anyway, a bit of a short one today. Not something I actually enjoy doing, but unfortunately it's something that needs addressing, and I'll show you what that is. Come with me. Now, this is a problem we've had repeatedly each year that we've been here now, and this is our third year in this property, and it always happens at exactly the same sort of time, and that time is generally when we've got stuff starting to go out into our planting area, into our veg plots. And basically it's these. Moles. Very, 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 very annoying. Now, I don't like wantonly killing things, but moles are becoming a pet hate of mine because they are a right pain in the backside. I'll give you some background. So what we tend to do, or what we've done previously, when we first started getting these moles in the garden, we'd noticed them out in the field quite a few times with molehills spotted here, there and everywhere, generally up near the orchard. But since then, what we found is you get little dots of molehills heading straight down to this veg plot. And when we first found out that they were in here, they'd pushed up all of our newly planted seedlings and everything. It just absolutely decimated about four of our planting beds, ruined it. Nothing came up out of those areas. And we tried the humane options. So we tried the improvised method, which was using bottles on canes with little flaps cut out of them so that they caught the wind and rattled, and it supposedly puts vibration down into the ground and deters them. We tried sonic deterrents. We tried, I can't remember what the other things were. We've tried about 4 or 5 different things to try and stop moles coming into this bit of the garden. And you know what? None of it worked. If anything, it felt more like we were doing what they do in June with those thumpers, where they put them in the ground, thump, 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 and it caused one of those giant worms. That seemed to be basically what was happening. Every time we put something in to deter the moles, we seem to end up with more. And we haven't done anything this year, but I'm afraid we're going to have to, because over the last 3 weeks we've started seeing the molehills again out in the field, and honestly they have headed straight for this bit of the garden, the veg plot, and they're already into our onion and leek bed, and from there I can see that they're working out into some of the other areas. So I'm going to have to deal with them, unfortunately, and it's going to have to be the chopping block for these little fellas, because there's no other way that I can get rid of them and stop them from destroying stuff. There's no point in us planting stuff if they're just going to dig it all out. And you can see down here, I mean, they're basically turning over the soil around the leeks that are in there. Now this bed needs, they're turning over all of the stuff that's already planted in there. Now that's just leeks and onions, and to be honest, it's not one of our better beds anyway. It needs some more compost in it, it needs weeding, etc, etc. So it's quite lucky that they've gone into there. The onions and leeks are quite robust as well, so I'm not too worried about them re-establishing. But some of the others, where we've got courgettes and squash, that would basically decimate it. We wouldn't get anything out of those beds if they were turning it over like that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go and set some traps. Now I did do one yesterday. It hasn't caught anything from what I can see, and that same mole that I was trying to catch there has moved further down into this bed. Now, one thing I would say that I think may be encouraging this, we have tried the no dig method repeatedly, right? And using the no dig method, we have basically covered each of these beds with cardboard, and then we put soil down, then we put compost down, and we keep on topping up with compost. I've said before in previous videos, our soil is not very good, it is very sandy. That seems like a hell of a lot of work, really, just to try and get some soil into the ground. On some of the other beds where we've actually just turned it over, it seems to have worked better there. But the cardboard seems to just create an environment that the worms absolutely love, and unfortunately that's like creating a buffet for these moles. They seem to make a beeline for all of the ones that we've put cardboard down and then covered with soil. It's getting to the point it's ridiculous. We may as well just stop doing it, because every time we do that we end up with moles heading into these areas. And you can see it is underneath the planting beds. They don't really go into the grassed areas, the pathways between. It's literally just the planting beds. So it's quite frustrating. Anyway, what we're going to do is we are going to use one of these. Not the most pleasant of things, not the most pleasant of tools. These are scissor traps used for catching moles, and we'll set one up and see what we can catch. Okay, right, first things first, we've got to find the direction of travel for this mole. Where is it moving from and to? And that way we can dig into one of the tunnels, find the holes that are leading, you know, basically the channel that it's cutting through the soil, and then we'll set a trap in there. But to do that we're going to have to use effectively a ranging pole. This is just a rebar stake, and that'll give us an idea where the tunnel actually is. So we'll go and do that first in this one area. I may have to set another trap somewhere else. There is a molehill over there and there's some over in the grass. I may do one that way as well, but let's do this one first and I'll show you the process. I can see that it's basically gone in that sort of direction to get to there, because there's a ridge just down here. So what I'm thinking is I may set a trap there and then set another trap over here and try and catch it somewhere along that route. The other annoyance, couch grass. Oh, I hate it. Now, there's definitely a tunnel there, and there's one there. Now, the problem that I've just found with this is, like I say, we've got cardboard down and we've got soil over the top. These tunnels normally, let's say they were in, if they're in that sort of ground, so just normal ground without any cardboard down, the holes when we've dug into them have been between 6 and 12 inches down. They're quite deep. This, what they're doing effectively is they're going up to the top of the cardboard and skimming between the cardboard and the top of the soil. So you might be talking about 4 inches at the most. There's not really enough cover there to set a trap. The soil just collapses around it. So there's one over that far side that I'm going to set one in there, and I might try and do one in this really shallow bit, but we'll see. It may not work. Right, I'm not sure you'll be able to see this, but we'll give it a try. So if you look in that hole at that back side, you can just see where the mole has gone, and the other hole is just over on this bit. So it's in there, and you can see that is about 4 inches down. And what I need to do is basically you find the hole where it's coming in and where it's going to. So that way and that way, those two areas. And we get our trap. Get the trap, whichever way, open it up, slide this little thing through, and then what you're doing is you are placing, there's these little grooves on this plate, okay, you see the groove there and a groove there, and that sits, I can get it in there. There. So those grooves sit either side of those arms, spring-loaded arms. So when the mole comes through, it pushes this out of the way, either direction, and then these clamp shut and kill the mole. Now that's why you need to work out which way the mole is coming and going in that hole. So we know it's going in that direction. So that hole's not quite big enough. So So we've placed that along the route that tunnel was going. So in theory, if the mole is over here behind me, or over on that side, and it's moving between these points, then it should pass through that location. Now, what I've got to do is block off the top so that we're not allowing light in there, because that will put the mole off from going through that location. We'll do another one over this other side as well, because I think there's only one mole in here and I need to get rid of it. So to block off the light, all I'll do is get some vegetation. We've got lots of tall grass around here. We'll rip some of that up, we'll wind it around and we'll plug it into the hole. It's not got to impede the spring-loaded claw, basically, so it's got to be light enough that it can be moved out of the way by the spring, but thick enough that it stops the light getting in. Right, let's place this in. And like I say, the other annoyance in this garden is couch grass. We just can't get rid of it. No dig does not work, because it just punches its way through the cardboard. And the only thing I've found so far in any of the beds has been to dig it all up and literally pull out every single root. Growing stuff is not easy, no matter what people tell you. Right, let's do another one of these. It's a shame, but something you gotta do. Anyway. It's been a few days since I set the traps to try and catch the mole, or moles in this case, and I have a sneaking suspicion we've probably got one or two, but they have been quite destructive recently. They've moved into the veg plot, started turning up some of the seedlings that we've placed in there, and they're absolutely destroying the lawn. Which I can sort of put up with. I don't mind molehills, but what I do mind is the fact that they're creating divots and holes that the dogs are going to run through, and knowing our dogs, particularly Newton, he's likely to put his foot straight into a hole and break his leg. Also applies to rabbits, of which we have quite a few at the moment, and that will be another video. Anyway, let's go and check on the mole traps. Nope, nothing in that one. This one looks more promising. There we have the culprit. Now I'll say this, that does not make me happy having to do that sort of thing. That's a needless death in some respects. I aren't going to do anything with that mole, I'm not going to eat it, I'm just going to dispose of the carcass. If I go after the rabbits, that's a different matter, but it does annoy me having to go after the moles. Basically, everywhere that you can see soil is where the moles have been appearing, and if they stayed in this area, which is basically down this side and then along here, within reason, I'm alright with that. What's happening though is they're making a beeline for these, all of them, and even these. We've got moles coming from this side of the garden down and across. We've got moles coming from that side of the garden down and in, and they're all heading for the veg plot. And what I've noticed is they are going underneath the no dig plots, obviously where we've got cardboard down and all the worms and everything else are underneath there. That's where they're heading for. I don't know how they know they're there, but that's what's happening, and I aren't prepared to have that, so that's why we're controlling. Anyway, that's how a mole trap works, that's how you trap one, and we'll see how many more we get in the coming days, but for now I'm going to sign off, leave it at that. Hope you found that interesting, not too disturbing, and maybe a bit useful, so we'll see you next time. Hold on just a second, we have an update just to demonstrate how bad the mole situation actually is. Now this is a few weeks after the last bit of the video, and I'll just go and show you what sort of situation we've now got with the moles. So we're out in the garden, we've got stuff growing. Seedlings coming up, and looky here. So Sarah came out yesterday and said, David, something's been moving through all of my seedlings, they're all disturbed. And I came out yesterday evening to have a look, thinking it was just a vole picking away at the plants. No, it's not. I don't know whether you can see this, but this is the moles, and they have worked their way into this raised bed. There's the raised bed, and once again they've come in from down there, down here, and have got into the raised bed, and you can see the gaps in the seedlings. In fact, if I'm correct, yep, there we go. They're in both of those beds, and that is what we're dealing with. It is unbelievable. The one place I actually thought that the moles wouldn't go into, and they're in it, and that is every time we put seedlings down. Now those beds we haven't done no dig, but we have created, I can't remember what it's called, where you put a load of wood down at the bottom. I'll put that in the video here. So So there's probably plenty of little gribblies hidden in that lot. But yeah, more moles. And unfortunately, they're not doing themselves any favours because I'm going to have to get rid of them. So with that, I'll sign off and we'll see you next time.